I hope you have your costumes ready for whatever parties you're planning to go to, but for now, why don't you check out what board game news we have to talk about for the week of October 26th, 2022. In previous news stories, I talked about a scandal happening in the world of chess. This mostly involved two players, Hans Niemann as well as Magnus Carlsen. They are two players. One of them, I believe, was already an established pro Grandmaster, I believe, while the other one was a new and upcoming player. And the Grandmaster, Magnus, accused Hans of cheating multiple times, which led up to him forfeiting a match against him in one turn during an online tournament, which, of course, brought up all these allegations. And apparently Hans Niemann was banned from a website called chess.com for supposed cheating. And now everything has come to a head with Hans suing not only Magnus, but chess.com and two other people, a chief chess officer, Danny Wrench, and a streamer, Hikaru Nakamura. I'm not sure exactly why those two are on there. Most of the information I can find really focuses on Magnus, with bringing up and accusing Hans of cheating and supposedly getting fans to help disseminate lies and stuff. That's Hans' argument. This is a slander. It's slander, libel of civil conspiracy, and some other charges, pretty much ruining his character, blacklisting him from tournaments, and I believe also stopping him from being hired as a chess teacher, pretty much ruining his character. I'm sure someone who is more into law could explain each of these charges more specifically, but I think that's the general gist. Chess.com, obviously, for banning him, and we're saying why they did ban him, though I don't think they ever showed the evidence of the cheating, because I remember reading a tweet. They did officially say when they did ban him, they caught him cheating, if I recall correctly. So this is really interesting. By the way, this is for $100 million, but this is a pretty big deal, as it's not simply just pointing fingers anymore. This is straight up going to the courts, and there's $100 million on the line. So this is probably going to force, for example, when I mentioned before with the chess.com, I assume they're going to have to show the actual evidence to him cheating for this case. And I'm sure the other players and people involved, for whatever reason they are on this case, I mean, like I said, I know mostly of MagnusChess.com, will have to present whatever they have. Last time I talked about this, Magnus said he had evidence cheating but couldn't say anything on it right now. I wonder if they were in the legal discussion, so to speak, maybe, and they didn't want to say anything, and this is them officially stating, no, we're not coming up on a settlement or agreement. We are suing you. And that may be one of the reasons why he didn't talk too much during that period. It's a really weird story, and I am, at this point with the court case, I'm pretty sure this guarantees we're going to get a Netflix adaptation sometime in the future. In boring business conglomerate news, Asmodee has purchased VR distribution. When I first saw this article, I assumed the VR, and that's all I saw, was related to virtual reality, which got me excited that Asmodee was going to add a virtual reality studio into their fold and maybe be making some special VR related things with all their products they have. VR distribution is actually a distribution of board games company. It is for Australia, New Zealand, and also the UK, which I find a little bit weird, but also sort of an island area. So I guess that's what their main focus is. With this, they have a huge connection there in terms of games that have to go through, well, Asmodee technically, because they own this company now. And I know there were some exclusive and stuff, but the bigger thing is, at least for me, that I seem to notice before initially Asmodee was buying more companies. Like they now have the rights to this game and this game. But now instead of buying game companies, they're buying the paths that game companies use to get those games to us. This can be just as worrisome because if you know anything about trade routes, anyone who controls the route is just as deadly as the person who controls the materials being traded. So I'm sure plenty of board gamers, especially those in the Euro line, can see how this could go bad. Now, obviously, this could be pretty neutral and then just having a bit more control over their own distribution things. But I am a bit of a pessimist whenever it comes to things like this. But for the most part, I don't know how much the average consumer is going to see this as much as those actually in behind the scenes. This may be the thing where they're going to have to see what's available to them, where they're allowed to distribute, or even other distribution companies. If Asmodee now says we're only going through the companies we own, which is a big deal considering Asmodee already owns some of the biggest board game titles that are out there. We'll have to see, of course, just as usual, as this grows bigger and bigger, or whether it's going to be sold off yet again. One final story that I think is a little cute. We are approaching a time where there's going to be a lot of extra life charities, and if you can give, absolutely do. And there are plenty of board game companies that like to do and help out here. And one of the ones that sort of has a fun little twist is Magic the Gathering Wizards of the Coast. What they started, I believe last year was the first time, but we're seeing a repeat. They get 3 cards and they have kids draw art for them. Based on the kids' art, they also have an artist take their drawing and try to make it look more like a normal Magic card. This can lead to some very interesting art depending on how the kid interprets the cards. This Secret Lair pack, which is a special bundle you can buy, you get all the cards in there. It comes with 2 copies of each card, one with the kid's actual art, one with the artist's, I guess you can call it updated art, for 3 different cards. So you're getting 6 cards total. The first one is Birds of Paradise. So a beautiful rainbow bird. Fantastic job by both artists. In fact, all of them. But it's definitely, you probably, like, for the most part, I would have accepted it as like, yeah, that looks like a Birds of Paradise. Next up, we have Lathis Dragon Queen, someone who I was thinking to run my dragon-themed commander deck. This, of course, still has a pretty good-looking dragon for the most part, and I don't think it was too hard for the artist to adapt the dragon over the kid's drawing. And finally, though, this is the one that I think is the most interesting because it is Sliver Legion. Slivers are one of my favorite tribes in Magic the Gathering because, to my knowledge, it is a Magic the Gathering race. It's not like a dragon or an elf, which appears in plenty of other media. So this kid, as far as I can tell, wasn't told what a sliver looks like. So he drew his own interpretation, which led to this cute, very almost gremlin goblin-like creature. And the artist went with it, having the creature look very similar in style. And since it's a legion, having the horde of its similar race behind it with the same Saturn-like planet in the background. Now, Sliver Legion in particular is a very desirable card for Sliver players. Slivers are all about buffing each other up, and Sliver Legion just makes everything disgustingly huge. This is still a great selection of cards I think are desirable. And last year as well included Crater Hoof Behemoth, another really powerful green card. So it seems at the very least they're trying to make something in here be a hard sought after card, be it because it's not printed very often or it's just used in so many decks, mostly Commander. So if you are playing Magic and want to do something a bit more charitable but get a little fun trinket or stuff in return, this is a great way. Like I said, this Secret Lair is paired with Extra Life, so part of the proceeds will be donated to charity as well. Now on to Kickstarter Pickstarter. But before we actually get into my picks, there are 2. They probably would have been picks, but I'm not going to talk too much about them like I usually do because I've already made videos for them. The first one is Hidden Leaders Forgotten Legends. This one is actually a how to play video. It just shows you how to play each of the modules. It's an expansion that includes 3 different modules that you can mix and match with the base set. A lot of fun, a lot of weird interaction. So if you just want to know how the game works, definitely go check out that video. I highly recommend it. The other one being an expansion for Destiny's Witchwood. This is the newest chapter for Destiny's. It is a solo or competitive narrative story game, very unique in that sense. Now, what this expansion really focuses on a bit more, if you want to know what makes it different, is a traveling mechanic, which makes it a bit more interesting that sometimes moving to certain places may trigger different events and have these weird maze things. You can watch the preview to learn a bit more of what that expansion has to offer. But let's now get into some Kickstarter Pickstarters that I have yet to try out or make a video for. The first one is the expansion for Core Quest called Keep On Questing. If you don't know, Core Quest was a game designed by a father and his daughter, became a successful Kickstarter and game of designing a family-friendly dungeon crawler. Now, from what I can tell, this expansion has a bunch of fun new stuff, including some new heroes, enemies, but the big thing for me, well, 2 big things for me are, 1, environments. It seems to add an icy and slime environment, but the other really cool thing is that they are actually looking for art from kids to adapt into the game. So if you have a child who likes to draw, contact them. I think they said just keep an eye on the Kickstarter for now, so watch it, but they might say like, all right, we're looking for a dragon, or I guess this could be very similar to the Magic Secret Lair I talked about, and you can ask your kid if they would like to do a drawing for that, submit it, and that would be pretty cool to have their art featured in a game. Now, if you already have this and you just want the expansion, it's about $31, but just like plenty of Kickstarters for expansions, you can still get the base and plenty of other goodies if you think this would be a great game to play with your family. The next Kickstarter I gotta talk about is The Queen's Dilemma. This is a standalone sequel to The King's Dilemma, probably what I believe to be one of, if not my favorite legacy game I've ever played. Now, like I said, standalone, meaning that you don't have to have had knowledge or the actually finished King's Dilemma for this game to work. It is set 100 years after everything that goes on in that game. So if you missed out on that one, you don't have to go back and rush and play through that. But I would still highly suggest it. It is a great time. This game has similar and builds off of that, but it adds a bunch of new mechanics. It seems instead of playing as simply a kingdom, you play as a character who runs a kingdom. And it does seem to do a bit of a better job defining of the things that they are looking for. And it has, what I can tell, it seems to be a bit more focused on how you build around the kingdom. You'll have stickers of where you put your little duchies, pretty much your territory, as well as your character might fight for certain kinds of statistics, or at least what your country stands for, being if it's more spiritual or based more on physical needs. It has a bit of a tug-of-war system with stats of what the kingdom finds important. The system here for King's Dilemma, and what I assume Queen's Dilemma will have, was the one I was most excited to return to the table compared to any other legacy, and arguably campaign at least, I'd have to think a bit more on that one, game I've played. So this one, it is a big one. It's for $130, but like I said, if you enjoy arguing and like voting, and the idea of like making a decision and card asking who wrote their name here or has this, and coming to either reward you or bite you in the butt later, I couldn't recommend at least the first one more, and I assume I will love Queen's Dilemma just as much. Next up, we have Zoo Tycoon. This is a game all about, if you can guess from the name, building up a zoo. You'll be laying down tiles. Obviously, some will be trying to actually build exhibits for animals, but you'll also have to decide whether you focus more on the money makers, such as your gift shops, restaurants, or more conservational tiles, such as habitats designed to rehabilitate endangered species in order for them to be released. It also seems the animals will have a rotating wheel changing their stats, meaning that the animals might not be acting the same way between turns. Now, this is a game that has a mod for Tabletop Simulator if you want to try it out first. If you want this game, the standard version is $81, but there is a deluxe version with better animal meeples, and I believe that one is around $106. Finally, we're going to head over to BackerKit for Aegean Sea. This game has you take the role of different, mostly Greek groups, fighting over the Aegean Sea. What's really cool about this is that each player has a deck of cards, and the way those cards work is they have a central power, but they also have a color which usually denotes a basic action. Depending on whether you're able to activate the power in the center or not, you have to be able to activate everything. You're then going to tuck that card underneath either another island or your own home board. Each of the sides has a different symbol, which strengthens the power of wherever you tuck it. For example, the right side has a pot which is supposed to represent goods. The more goods you have, the more desirable to trade with that island is. The bottom being people, meaning there's more people, so on and so forth. This looks like a really clever, cute, fun game with cards that have a lot of different values and purposes. And one of those times where deciding which card you play, maybe because you want to tuck it in or you really need that power, I thought it looked really clever. And I always like games and cards that have a lot of different values, abilities, and ways to use them. This is on the lighter end compared to some of the games we talked about before, only for $30. So if this sounds interesting for you, go to BackerKit and check this one out. But now, those are our picks of new Kickstarters that came up this week, but we do have a few that will be ending very soon. So you might want to check these out if any of them sound interesting to you. First up, we have Warcrow Adventures. I talked about this before, big narrative story game that can also use as minis in a war game later on. Then we also have Harrow Country. I didn't see this one, but this is by the same people who did Mind Management, which for a lot of people was one of their favorite games when it was released. Then we have Nangan Parbat Mission Packs. I bring this up because I played the original one. We should have a video of that still. It was part of a collection of Dr. Finn games. It was a lot of fun, so definitely go check that out. Finally, we have Wonderland Wars Shards of Madness. This is a game based in the world of Alice in Wonderland, but I admit I actually missed out on this, but I have seen so many people talk about this game, so probably one you should at the very least just take a look at in case this is something up your alley. That is what we have for this week's news. Let me know your thoughts on anything here. Are you backing any of these projects, of course? Are you more knowledgeable in the world of chess or just general legalese so you can mention more about what's going on in this story and the chess scandal, love to hear from you. And of course, if there's anything extra like be it the Magic the Gathering or a different project you would love to shout out, please let me know. I'd love to hear from you. And of course, thank you to everyone who helps out. And if you think someone may be interested in this video, please share it with them. It really helps me out. And of course, the usual stuff, the bell, the like, the subscribe. And of course, how could I forget? Thank you to all my rollers who support me on Patreon. It means a lot to me, and I should honestly thank you more. But for now, this is the end of this news video. Thank you so much for watching this far. I'm Will, and this is Roll for Crit.